Caught up in the World Wide Web, the invention that has revolutionized the lives of billions, but has a vision of global public access being a global force for good. This is Inside Story. It's an invention that has brought change at a pace unequaled in the history of humanity, changing the way billions of people live, making the world a smaller place, more accessible. This week marks the 25th anniversary of the World Wide Web, but has there been a price to pay for the privilege? Hello, I'm Mike Hanna. Welcome to the program. It was back in 1989 that British engineer Tim Berners-Lee first submitted his idea to share information between universities and institutes around the world, an idea now considered to be one of the world's greatest inventions. But along with the benefits of a world online have come the challenges: surveillance and censorship, privacy and freedom of opinion. To our discussion in a moment, after this report by Nick Toksvig.
This man is best known for inventing a little thing called the World Wide Web.
If you're a big government or you're a corporation and you have the possibility of controlling the web in any way, of influencing what people see on it or influencing where people go on it, that is a massive power over the consumer, massive power over the citizen. So the temptation to take up that power and try to control people using the web is ever present. So we always have to watch out for it.
25 years after Tim Berners-Lee first proposed the web, some people would say his vision is under threat. The powerful ideas that underpin the web, that we all have open and equal access, seem somewhat idealistic in 2014. State censorship is a growing challenge. Governments everywhere, from China and Russia to countries in the Gulf, increasingly exercise some sort of control over the web. And because of security leaks by people like Edward Snowden, we now know more than ever before about how our governments are watching and even manipulating what we see and do online. And it's not just them. The vast majority of the world's top 100 websites are run by corporations, and their need to turn a profit and stamp out competition has led to huge internet monopolies. Facebook's purchase of messaging service WhatsApp is a good example. The web has also disrupted major industries. Our ability to access things for free online has forced music, film and news companies to adapt. Companies like Netflix have sprung up that tread the line between open access and profit. But it's the same driving forces behind those trends that suggest the web's founding vision remains intact. Today, anyone can publish music online and anyone can be a newsmaker. That's something Tim Berners-Lee must be proud of. Nick Toksvig for Inside Story.
Well, let's bring in our guests. With me here in Doha is Nino Carter, technology specialist and CEO of Spark Digital. Joining us on Skype from Hong Kong is Andrew Leung, an independent China analyst and economist. And from our London studios is Barry Fox, editor of Consumer Electronics Daily and an internet technology analyst. Welcome to you all. Let's begin in London with Barry Fox. A question that may or may not be self-evident. Has the World Wide Web made people's lives better?
Yes, I think so. It's made lives better, and it's also exposed people to great risk. But it's a great invention. It can't be uninvented. So therefore what we have to do is learn to live with the downside, and their education is the key. Teaching people how to be careful, and so far that's been sadly lacking. People have been taught how to use it, but not how to protect themselves.
We're going to get back to that point in a minute, but let me go to Nino Carter with that initial question. Has it made people's lives better?
Well, I think it's made, it's opened up a whole new world of information. So people can find out the answer to questions that they have, whether it's a medical ailment or you're just curious about how to publish your own book.
And Andrew Leung, your view? Better life for all?
Well, I think for China, it's utterly revolutionary. I mean, it's revolutionized the society. It's revolutionized how the government is seen by the people. It's also revolutionized how the party secretaries manage their affairs and also monitors public opinion. And of course, China has the world's largest internet population. And then also it's affecting how business is done in China. There are huge, gigantic enterprises capitalizing on this technology, and it's growing very, very strong. So I think this is revolutionary in China.
Well, Barry Fox, agreement among all, yes, it is for the best, it would appear. You mentioned, though, the dangers in it. You mentioned the risks. Elaborate.
Well, it's security risks. It was, somebody once said, what you're doing when you sell someone a computer. On a Saturday morning, they go out and buy a computer for a few $100s, and what you've effectively sold them is the power of a megaton bomb. But you haven't taught them how to use it, because once you go online, with broadband now in almost most developed country homes, you are exposing yourself to the risks. And by risks, I mean hackers getting inside your computer and stealing personal data, hackers putting programs on your computer which enable them to log the keystrokes. In other words, see on their screen what you're seeing on your screen. So when you key in your private passwords, they're seeing it. And you're seeing the hackers able to harness other people's computers around the world, turn them into zombies, which can then attack large websites like government websites in what they call denial of service attacks. All these can be prevented if people are aware of the risks, but there is not a good tuition system to make people aware of those risks.
Well, we'll return to that particular issue in a moment, but to most of the world, the World Wide Web is their gateway to the internet. It's estimated that 8 new people start using the internet every second. It means a little over 2 billion people can now get online, almost a third of the world's population. But there's a big global divide. Almost 80% of people in North America have access to the internet. Europe isn't too far behind at 67%, while 4 out of 10 people in the Middle East are connected. But the figure drops still further across Asia, where less than a third of people have access to the internet. And it's even more limited in Africa at 15%, although it's one of the world's fastest growing markets. Well, we see here a picture of inequality in something that started out as something that was supposed to be equitable. Is there a responsibility on those who do have Nino Carter to help narrow this gap, to bring back the vision of a world united, a world of access for all?
I think what's lacking is infrastructure in certain parts of the world. And what we're seeing is Google now, they're doing a project called Google Balloon, or Loon for short, where they're going to broadcast internet access over parts of Africa. Facebook's talking about launching remote-controlled drone airplanes that will also broadcast internet access. So now it makes it easier to get online, but you still need either a handheld device or a laptop to be able to do it.
Well, Andrew Leung, your particular view on that, is there a responsibility to involve as many people, of the world's people, in the internet as possible?
Well, of course, the world's most populous country is China at the moment. And a lot of people, I mean, it's a very high penetration rate as far as the internet is concerned. And of course, the highest mobile internet population. I mean, if you go to China, almost everyone, you know, sort of students and executives and even elderlies, you know, I mean, they're all equipped with mobile phones. And then, of course, a lot of people go online using the mobile devices. As I was mentioning just now, there are companies in China which manages to connect all the interfaces, emails, as well as text messages, as well as video calls at the click of a finger, as it were. So I think that this is changing China so rapidly that it's almost beyond recognition.
Well, Barry Fox, do you think that this example that we've just heard spoken about here, the massive explosion of internet usage within a massive country like China, does the process itself engender its own development? Are people, even in undeveloped areas, as we heard at the example of Africa, does the actual process itself energize participation within something like the World Wide Web and the Internet?
Yeah, I mean, it's like television. I mean, it becomes unstoppable. I mean, it isn't. I mean, we always talk about the Vietnam War ending because it was the first war to be covered by almost live television. Once you have got something like television covering news live, then it never goes away. Once you've got, and it was the case in the Berlin Wall, you saw those in East Berlin watching West German television, and that was a great power for breaking down the wall, because it created great uncertainty and great envy and instability. We're going to see this with the World Wide Web, and as others have mentioned, these ways of getting broadband access to remote areas are very important, because you have to realize that now the World Wide Web really needs broadband. You can't do it with the old-fashioned dial-up telephone. So governments will have to provide it, otherwise those governments will fall.
Well, Nino Carter, that's a very interesting point, that it actually becomes an issue that if you don't do it, not only are you left behind, but you're under threat.
Yeah, well, the thing that his point is correct with the speed needs to continue to increase in terms of broadband usage. Right now we're seeing a lot of Twitter with text messages, and you can now add photos and whatnot. But as the speed continues to increase, a lot more video is going to be shared, and people will be able to watch a lot of video on their handheld devices all over the world.
Well, we mentioned the problems inherent within the World Wide Web. Let's just take a look at the issue of profit. The digital empire is dominated by just a few titans of technology, all among the world's most valuable companies. There's Apple, current market leader and worth around $460 billion. Rival Microsoft is worth some $300 billion. Each has been valued at more than $600 billion in the past. Then there's Google. In February, it became the world's second most valuable company behind Apple, valued at $390 billion. Well, we heard at the top of the show from the inventor warning against the potential dangers of those seeking to take control of the World Wide Web. Now, Andrew Long, you were referring to the experience of China. We've got a situation there, for example, where 49% of Chinese computer users are using the Microsoft XP system, which will be changing. Microsoft wants to change it, start using a new system. People are going to be subject to immense security risks should they not update an operating system. Is this a form of control, do you believe?
Well, of course, in China, there was the so-called the Great Firewall, which controls the internet on issues deemed sensitive to the state. But as far as the Windows XP is concerned, I mean, there's a 12-year-old system, and most people using them are either elderly people or students. And of course, and the upgrade costs about less than 1,000 renminbi, which is not a great deal of money. But as far as security is concerned, China has developed a highly secure system called the Keylin as a form of Linux developed by the National University of Defense Technology. So anything sort of high, top secret military and state information would be guarded by this Keylin system, which guard against most cyber attacks. And of course, China's expert in cyber warfare. So I don't think that there is China's going to be to worry terribly much as far as security is concerned about the upgrade to Windows 8. This mainly affects the people who deem that, well, it cost me nearly 1,000 renminbi to upgrade, but that's not a security problem.
Well, I want to return to that wider security threat in a moment, but let me go to Nino Carter here about shifting operating systems. People, particularly as we heard mentioned there, the elderly, having to switch to a new operating system within years, perhaps, of them having used one, and having to pay for that.
Yeah, there's two big issues here. One is that you have to pay several $100s to upgrade. And the second is a lot of computers that run Windows XP are not suitable to upgrade to Windows 8. You need better hardware. So they're going to have to scrap the machine and buy another one. A better alternative would be to download something like Ubuntu. That's a free operating system that's an alternative to Windows. It's very easy to install. We put links to it on our website, sparkdigi.com, and people can use that, and it works with older hardware.
Well, Barry Fox, I see you nodding there as well. I mean, something like the Ubuntu operating system would appear to be very much in line with the spirit of those who made the web publicly available at the beginning. Do you think this is an essential part of development?
Yes, and it is very much like the open office system, which is you can download OpenOffice, which does just about everything that Microsoft's very expensive Office suite of programs does. I mean, I use it myself. And I mean, on this issue of XP, I mean, yes, people can move over to Ubuntu, but one of the reasons that Microsoft has finally said we are going to shut down security support for XP. The machines will continue working, but Microsoft won't continually update them to make them secure. One of the reasons is that Microsoft replaced Windows 7 with Windows 8, which is an entirely different, it has such a different appearance and look and feel. And I speak personally, I've been dragged screaming into upgrading to Windows 8, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it, and a lot of people also hate it. Witness the fact that I understand that some of the computer companies are now trying to get Microsoft to let them sell computers with Windows 7, in other words, one version back. So Microsoft have created an extraordinary situation here where they are trying to force people to buy something they really don't want.
Well, we've heard agreement here, if I may, Barry, we've heard agreement here from Nina Carter about dislike of that particular system. But Andrew Long, what we're hearing as well is a new system being developed in China, brand new system, operating system for Chinese, which the profit motive has gone away. The profit motive leaves. Microsoft, by attempting to change, is actually losing customers, losing people willing to pay money. Your view, Andrew Long, is this part of the process that you just get dropped if you don't stay with the agenda, which is freedom of access?
Well, I think first of all, as changing system is concerned, I myself had experience of changing one system to another. It's always not necessarily for the better, but that's not that's the change of technology. But as far as access to information is concerned, as I was saying, and there was no comparison as far as the China's society and the way of doing business, the way of life, the way of the government ministers' affairs. It was completely changed in China now because of the internet revolution, and I like to highlight. We'll talk about downloading photos and sharing things on the internet, but there is far more important, a game changer, is how business is carried out. I mean, I was referring to the way the internet is changing even banking businesses. Now you talk about e-payment systems, you're talking about e-trade finance, and also in the case of transmission of money. For example, a very successful transmission system is in Africa, where by a company called MPESA, M-M-P-E-S-A, which using a mobile phone, and farmers, without any banking branches, will be able to transmit money, to their relatives thousands of miles away. So it is changing how remittances are carried out. It's changing how banks do their business, and even branches. You need to open so many branches all over the place with expensive real estate and so on and so forth, where people can transmit money over the internet. So I think the revolutions in many different fields are happening right in front of our eyes.
Well, I want to pick up on what you said there at the beginning, and that was about governments restricting access. You mentioned a while back about the wall that was built in China, has been the firewall that has been built in other societies as well. This issue of governments trying to fragment the World Wide Web to wall off, as it's been described, parties, to create areas of no-go. How much of a danger is this, Nino Carter, the issue of governments actually destroying the freedom of information within the World Wide Web?
It's a very real issue. It's one of the things you need to do is educate yourself on it, learn about things like the Onion Router, otherwise known as the Tor project, which is a browser you can use to circumvent censorship in different ways. So there you can use technology to your benefit to counter what's being done.
Well, Barry Fox, here we're returning to the issue that you were saying right at the beginning. People have to learn about this, no matter how prevalent it is. That issue of governments controlling access. At the beginning, once the World Wide Web, the code was given out free, it was an open park. Governments have attempted to lock that gate, and if you don't have the key, you can't enter the gate. So have corporations. But that issue of understanding that, of how to circumvent attempts to close off the information, how important is that?
Okay, well, I'll give you the example that a few months ago when I flew to the Far East via Beijing, I had a long stopover at Beijing airport. I could use free internet broadband there, but I had to give my passport, have my passport scanned. Well, I sure as heck wasn't going to do anything on the internet that would upset the Chinese, or I'm sure I would not have flown out. So you learn to deal with the situation as it is. But my point about education is more about people who unwittingly put themselves at risk of losing their personal identity details and their banking details. And my point about education is that this is something that should be at school level, where children are taught this is the danger. You may not have much money, but you will lose it, and you will lose your identity if you don't understand about issues like virus protection and being aware of the many, many scams. I get scam emails every day asking me to click on links to get something free, and those would infect my computer. That's what schools should be teaching.
Andrew Lung, your view on that, once again looking at a country like China, which is getting millions of new users every day, that element of education.
Well, of course, the internet is used very, very widely in China, and as far as the Great Firewall is concerned, it's only targeting on a handful, really handful of very sensitive issues. But at the other side of the coin, to closing gates is the risk of opening gates. I mean, the saga, the kind of scandal unveiled by Snowden, for example. I mean, as people use the internet as a free-for-all, and then this gives the opportunity for governments. Of course, not only America is doing it, there are some other governments are doing it as well, to access information, monitor matters which people regard as their own private affairs, and even monitoring heads of states, interdepartmental or internal communications. So that's another risk, and that's another issue which caused a lot of rankles in recent months.
Well, Nino Carter, very quickly, it's a question of balance, isn't it? And a question of knowledge that with the freedom of information comes responsibility.
Yes, and if you have something that's secret, like a secret recipe for a great meatloaf or something like that, you might not want to put it online because it will be seen by either hackers or governments. Once it's digital, it's recorded. And I don't know who can see it, but it is visible to a certain group of people.
Well, Barry Fox, your particular view on that issue of security is your responsibility, be you a government or be you a private individual.
Yes, it's also learning. Again, a lot of people are discovering now that when they've put admissions, they've put boasts, photographs on the internet, which they are regretting, and which now prospective employers look on the internet at the Facebook page, and they look and see what someone has been saying about themselves and maybe decide they're not employable. Be careful is the word. And again, I come back to what I'm saying. Kids are not being taught to be careful. They should be.
Well, don't say anything on the net that you don't want to be heard. Well, at that point, thank you to our guests. Nino Carter here in Doha, Andrew Leung in Hong Kong, and Barry Fox in London. And thank you for watching. You can join in this discussion online at Facebook and Twitter. Just follow the links, but be careful. I'm Mike Hanna. Goodbye for now.